So on Tyler's great American baking show, he has started with his key lime pie dough. So what he put in was some ginger, some flour, what else?
Ginger, flour, sugar, eggs.
Sugar, eggs, all the typical stuff you put in a dough.
Powdered sugar.
Powdered sugar. And what do they call that in?
They call it icing sugar.
Icing sugar, if you're from across the pond. So he actually put it in the fridge for overnight just because he didn't get to it last night. But now he's going to knead it out and he's going to blind bake, also known as par bake it, into his little key lime pie pan. So he lightly dusted the counter with some flour, and the purpose of that is to keep any type of dough can get really sticky, and flour creates kind of like an anti-adhesive. So it keeps it from sticking to the counter. It can get a little messy, but
it's okay.
That's kind of the point of it. So, do you need this bowl anymore?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Typically in the kitchen you would clean as you go, but we're not going to do that
Not
tonight.
in this household.
Not in this household. We will save that until tomorrow morning. Why? Because it's like 9:15, but it's fine.
That's how we do it.
We do things late. I don't know if you know this, but it's something called like Mardi Gras this week. He had to go get some Cajun fried rice from Luke's Inside Out next door. I had to get my dog a bath. She's still mad at me. We had things going on.
I honestly didn't know it
happens.
was Mardi Gras this weekend until just now.
So that's fine. Right. Anyway, so he's put a little bit more flour.
Yeah.
So he's got his nice dough right here. He can also sprinkle some on top. It kind of works in the same way. And what other people do is they'll also put it around the rolling pin to help it keep it from sticking to the rolling pin while you roll it out. This is not like pizza dough. We're not making key lime pizza. We're not going to toss it.
Disgusting. Nope.
So you want to try and do equal pressure across the dough as you roll it out, obviously. But sometimes you don't want to do it too hard. And you want to make sure every few times you kind of pick it up and move it to make sure it's not sticking to the surface.
Make sure you're rolling it in every direction and not just one way.
Yes.
Get it nice and even.
So how thin do you think we want this to be?
The instructions say they're British.
We're following British instructions.
It's
very exciting.
The thickness of a pound coin.
The thickness of a pound coin.
I don't know what that is. So we're gonna make it pretty thin. I think a pound coin is probably about the same as like a dime or a quarter.
Yeah. So
we've got a little ways to go on this. But
I don't know the thickness of a pound coin, and I don't have a very good British accent. But I'm guessing they wanted to be that thin because it's probably going to rise up a little bit. Just a guess.
And I think in a key lime pie is like, it's a pie, but really it's kind of just like a big tart. And usually in that kind of thing, you don't want a super, or I guess in most pies anyway, you don't want like a super thick, chunky crust.
Yeah, and it's got flour, so it's probably going to rise. The egg's going to bake, but it'll still stay nice and moist. We'll see how the butter turns out. So here's a fun tip. Typically when you are making, oh, that looks beautiful. Woo! Typically when you're making a pie, what you can do when you're trying to measure out how big your crust needs to be is you can take your pie ring, do an indentation, don't indent, but do about 1.5 inches outside of it. That way you have enough to form a nice lip. If you want to go over this lip, that's also great. However you want to make your pie crust. But everyone's like, how do I do it?
That's probably what we're gonna do because this is a lot of dough, and the recipe actually calls for a 12-inch pie tin, and mine is about 8 or 9. So that's okay. We're just gonna have some extra dough and some extra filling, and that's looking kind of like it's supposed to, so that's a good sign.
So something that's fun to do with the dough, if you want to cook it separately, get it a little bit harder, then you can use it as a crumble on top as a garnish. So you do the key lime pie. If you want to put a little bit of whipped cream on there, add a little vanilla to the whipped cream, we'll get to that later. You can take those extra crumbles and just make it a nice little pattern. You can do it on a plate or make little even cookies. To cook separately and then cut and also use as a garnish. So you can always use every bit of your materials.
Yep.
So he's looking pretty good thin.
How thin does this look to you? Does this look pound coin thin? Maybe not quite just yet.
Maybe not quite yet. I think this side is.
This is getting a little.
But I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
How are we? We're not sticking. Looks
We're not
good.
sticking. Looks like a pizza crust. We're getting there.
So also, already started the oven and put it to 400 degrees so that when he's finished and he can put it in there, we're gonna
wait for the oven.
pop it in. It'll be good to go. We can figure out something to do until, I don't know, I turn this camera back on.
We do have filling to still make, so that's probably something we can at least start on.
Absolutely.
While we're waiting on that, because you don't want to, especially if you're on a time crunch, you don't want to really let any of your time go to waste.
We're not on a time crunch because we
not.
both work from home, which is kind of fun. But we're also doing this at 9 p.m. because we've been working very hard all day today.
He has.
And you know,
I have two in case anybody from work is watching.
this is very fun because typically I'm the one who is doing the cooking and doing the cleaning and all that kind of stuff. But tonight, I'm not much of a baker. I'm more of like an impromptu, let's throw in some seasoning and flavors and see how we can fix it.
There was a role to be filled.
There was a role to be filled. So when he went to Central Market to get all of his ingredients, he comes back with a brand new mixer, two measuring cups, all these things that I don't really use because I don't know. Oh, the rolling pin.
Who am I?
Who is he? I don't know. Basically, you can take just your average kitchen butter knife, and I'm going to tell him to go about 2 inches out because you can't add the dough back on, but you can still take it off once it gets inside the tin. So if it's too much, you can take a sharper knife and kind of mold it, do what you need to. So I'd say 2 inches out.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that 2 inches? Okay. Make it 2.5 just in case.
Beautiful.
And try and do that same circumference all the way around. The good thing is that Tyler is also an artist. He does freelance graphic design. He has, can I talk about your graphic novel?
Yeah.
He has a graphic novel called Chimera, which is really good. I think he's, on book 8? Maybe not book 8.
Something like that.
Maybe like book 6.
We'll see.
Anyway, he's very artistically inclined. He also does paintings. He's got some really good ones that we've had in our apartment for, I've lived with him for 5 years.
Lucky you.
Lucky me.
Right.
This is a pie crust, so eventually we're just going to push it out. So if anything, I might rub a little butter just around this outer rim.
Do it. Sounds good.
Oh, this is what I get to do.
This is. Now for the excess,
Give me your
dough,
knife.
do you want to leave this flat?
Yes.
In case we need to.
So with the extra, you can either leave it flat or you can kind of crumble it up and then redo it. But since we don't have anything to really do right now, we can just leave it there for a second. And I'll put it on a baking sheet and I'll bake it separately.
Beautiful. Is there a good way to grease a ribbed ring with butter?
No, there's not. There's no good way to do this. It is messy. It gets all over your fingers. You're going to have butter everywhere.
It's okay.
But the thing is if you just do this, butter is so easy, and because it's going to melt, it's going to kind of adhere to everything anyway. But you're more so just making it to where it's not completely stuck. Because when it's completely stuck, it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than going to bed with fresh butter on your hands. Just to
Don't,
remind
you do that,
you,
don't wash your hands before you go to bed.
absolutely wash your hands before you go to bed. Also take a shower.
We have 2 dogs. That's what they're for. Just kidding. That's disgusting.
That is disgusting.
Let's see. So once we have that, we're going to drape it over and sort of press it in there. But you want to do gently because it is very thin. You don't want to tear it. And once we do that, the recipe recommends using I think they're called baking beans. I think that's what they're called.
So a substitute for baking beans, you can also use rice, or you can also use lentils, or I've heard even coffee beans.
Yeah.
It's really just used for weight.
Right. Just so that when you heat it up, basically it doesn't rise and kind of come out of its shape.
All right, so I think I've got him a nice layer of butter. My job to butter the biscuit. I don't know. Okay.
Beautiful.
Next.
Okay, now let's drop this guy in there. If I can get it off the floured surface. And like you said, there's probably no need to really butter the base down too much. It doesn't hurt to do it a little bit, but the base on these basically just drops out. or rather the ring around it does. So not as much on that, but it doesn't hurt, just in case. The last thing that you want as this comes out of the oven is for it to be sticking to your dish, and then
Still gonna,
you go start all over.
still gonna put a little in there. Okay. All right. So
All right, your moment of truth. I hope this is the thickness of a pound coin.
we might be a little thick, but you know this is his first key lime pie, and I'm very impressed that we've made it this far.
You know, we're here, so. All right.
Cool. It's very hard for me not to do things because I like to touch things while it happens. And like I said, I'm normally the one cooking, so I'm gonna wash my hands of all this greasy butter and let him gently fold this in.
Yep.
Now you'll do a nice little crease toward the bottom. You don't want to do it too sharp because you might poke a hole into it.
Yep.
And then your filling falls through and you create a mess in the oven. And if you ever cleaned sugar and crap out of the oven, it is difficult.
It's not fun. Again,
You can see a little bit.
just make sure it's like pressed into the edges. There's a little bit of a crease in the bottom, but again, not too hard because you don't want to poke a hole through it. And then once that's done, I've seen it done both ways. You can either trim the edge before you bake, or you can bake and then trim the edge. I've seen it both ways. Might be easier to just trim it before baking.
Maybe we'll do it a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if you want to do it right along the edge.
Maybe just like a little bit out. Yeah, like just kind of.
There you go.
It's kind of hard to cut, but there we go. Just kind of like that.
Ooh.
So this way,
You can throw in dough like a pro.
well, I've been doing this for years. Basically,
Yo, this tastes.
you do want to make sure that it's not coming down off the sides, because it'll bake along the side of your pan and or drip off into your oven. And that's no bueno, so you definitely want that off.
You're not supposed to eat raw dough because it's got raw egg in it.
Yeah, it's true. Rocky did it.
I don't care. I've eaten some pretty interesting things in my life, and if they haven't killed me yet, then I think I'm gonna be okay.
My key lime pie is going to be the thing that ends you. So,
It might be, who knows?
This is Michael's last broadcast.
So, it's got a really good amount of sugar. It is butter heavy, but I love that
Same.
because I love a good buttery crust. A lot of people do a graham cracker crust,
Which is also very good.
which is also very good, but I'm really glad he didn't do that because this is different. I've never had it before. He also put, I want to say it's crystallized ginger. Okay, I'm going to quit eating
I
that.
think it's crystallized. I forget. But yeah, there's also powdered sugar in there. Can you taste the ginger coming through it all?
Yes.
A little bit.
So it's organic minced ginger.
Yeah, there you go. It's good stuff.
Got it at Central Market.
Yep.
It's actually really neat. It's already kind of crystallized and shaved. And more of a preservative, so it also adds a little sweetness.
And it's delicious. Okay.
All right.
So it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And then, like I said, once it's baked, we can trim around the edge and it'll look nice and pretty.
Yeah. So this is going to be go in the oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes.
For 15, I believe, correct.
15 minutes just to give it a nice golden color.
Yep.
And I guess next we'll work on the filling. One more thing we're going to do before we put this in the oven is to take a fork and to put holes in the bottom. It helps evenly distribute the heat while the crust cooks. You don't have to do it too much. Maybe every few inches or every inch. It doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to be prominent. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those baking things that I'll never understand.
I think it just keeps the heat too from like rising up beneath it and to keep it from like bubbling up or losing its shape on the bottom.
Yeah.
I think. I might have just made that up.
We'll find out. So the next part, getting things prepped for the actual filling, can be a little bit tedious. He's grating key limes to get lime zest on a cheese grater because we don't have a microplane. But I think he's going to get one, but he didn't know to, and I didn't tell him, and I'm really bad about that. So the other thing I'm doing is separating egg. And a lot of people are like, how do you separate eggs? It's such a pain, blah, blah, blah. You can do the cheat way and get something in the grocery store. But this way, you break it in half and you kind of use the shell as its own sifter. So you just nicely do it back and forth. I always save the whites for breakfast because all we need here are the egg yolks. This recipe calls for 7 whole limes zested and 4 egg yolks. 4 eggs separated, so just the egg yolks.
We have key limes, not regular limes, so we are going to do 14 instead of 7 because they're about half the size of a regular lime. I don't know what the correct term for regular lime would be, but
Another fun trick that you can do with an egg. You want to separate the yolk, crack it over a spoon, and it separates just as easy. I kind of learned this when I made creme brulees with my chef Erica Leip in Oxford, Mississippi. We had to make a lot of them all the time, and it was so obnoxious. But just kind of tips and tricks to make things easier. There you go.
now
Easy.
you know.
Okay, next Tyler's gonna make the filling for us. We have our lime juice, sweetened condensed milk. It says use real ginger. We're gonna use the crystallized ginger again.
It's sweeter.
4 egg yolks,
Lime zest.
lime zest, which is
And-
very annoying.
It's very annoying. And then sugar. I think
Sugar.
that's it.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so eggs going first, I believe, with... No, I can't read. Condensed milk, lime juice. And for the condensed milk, it is going to be...
How much?
Yeah, 2 400-gram tins, which is both of
Woo!
these.
That's a lot, dog.
It's a lot.
Best thing to use. This is Tyler's Peter Cottontail rubber scraper, and it is my favorite utensil that we have in this kitchen.
Same. It's very British.
It's very British. Neither of us are British.
That's true.
This is the most sweetest stuff in the world, and one day we'll show you how to put it in the oven, and you can go ahead and caramelize it in the can. It's kind of cool. You do it in water almost like a creme brulee, and it makes a really, really good Spanish dessert. I learned that from Miss Giles. She's made it for me once. All right.
Okay, you need to pause it.
Not gonna pause it. We're gonna push through it.
Well, we have half the lime juice we need.
We have half the lime juice we need.
Honestly, though, we could squeeze these limes out. and
Well,
use
that's
it.
the plan. We're gonna squeeze them out.
All right,
How
I'm
much
gonna-
do we need?
We need 8.5 fluid ounces total. This gives us 4.
It's also concentrated.
It's also concentrated. Does that matter? We're learning.
First time, first timers.
Listen.
I think we should Google it. Upon further discovery, we have discovered, redundantly, that if you have concentrated lime juice, to use about 2 to 3 times less than you would actual key lime juice, because key limes are not in season all year round.
So we're going to just cut it in half
So we're gonna cut the amount in half,
and pray.
and it's gonna be okay. All right.
All right, so key lime juice. Or just lime juice.
Or just lime juice.
Just lime juice.
But don't forget, we do have the 4 teaspoons of key lime grated. That's also gonna go in it. I'll be the stir.
Please. And then, so we've got the condensed milk, we've got that, we've got the lime zest is next. How does it smell?
It smells limey.
This is 4 teaspoons. It's turning very green.
Just a little green. It's not mixed up well enough. You know what? If it turns out green, it's close to St. Patty's Day anyway.
That's right. And it's key lime's not supposed to be green anyway, so. And then egg yolks.
Throw those in. Bust them up.
Yeah.
Mmm.
And then last thing is 3 teaspoons of ginger. We're gonna do 2 teaspoons at first because this is sort of us winging it a little bit. So I'm gonna say 2 teaspoons at first, and then we'll kind of taste it and see how it's going. And then if we need more, we'll add more.
I'm ready.
Same.
Always ready.
I love ginger. So
Ironically, I used to not like ginger. I don't know, it was one of those things that was too spicy. It always made me cough. When it came with sushi, I would be like, ah.
it's really strong. And if you do put in too much, it's kind of overpowering. But I've never had it in a key lime pie, so
We're gonna find out.
We're about to find out. Basically, all you're supposed to do at this point is stir until
What about sugar?
it feels right. Let's see here. For the sugar,
Are you
that's 8 ounces. So that is going to be, I believe, the last thing we put in here.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So what the recipe says is to mix all these things and then fold in icing sugar if needed.
Try it. Yeah,
It's pretty good. Honestly, I think I could have like a little bit more ginger.
I agree.
Just a little bit.
Yep.
You need one more?
Yep.
That's pretty good. And not.
I don't think it needs sugar.
I don't think it does either. It's plenty sweet.
What do you think about the tartness?
I think it's balanced.
Okay.
We'll try it after this. And if it's too tart, then we can kick in some powdered sugar. Don't do what I've done before and grab the flour instead of the sugar. They have a very different effect on your food. Let's see. And then that is going to be it for the mix. After this, once that's ready, waiting for our pie crust to finish. Once it does, we're going to pour it in.
All right, my faceless baker finished his pie crust. There he is. And it looks good. It looks nice and firm on the edges. It's gonna come out of its nice little ring. So the next part is we put the filling in, and he's going to bake it for another 15 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
We had to turn down the oven from 425?
425.
From 400 to 325. So it's gonna take a
That's
second.
it.
So basically all we're gonna do is we're gonna put this filling in. We're gonna pop it in for 15 to 20 minutes. He also grated some fresh chocolate, which is gonna go on top. So it's a ginger, lime, chocolate cake.
Pie.
Pie. Not a cake.
Same thing. And we're gonna have some of this left over because the recipe calls for a bigger pan.
Sometimes we improvise.
That's okay.
Also, if you have a lovely icing spatula, this will help smooth it out on top. We might not necessarily need it.
I don't know.
And a lot of people think this might be like a cold bake or a no bake dessert, but it needs to be baked. It's got eggs in it. So technically it's a custard.
I don't know if we're gonna have that much left over.
Actually, we might not have much left over.
This is looking pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all we have left to put this in. 15 more minutes. We'll check it out and then show you the final product. Okay, next on Tyler's Great British Baking Show, he is going to make meringue to top his key lime pie with. So what we have are egg whites, icing sugar, I think, icing sugar, as well as powdered, known as powdered sugar, and his brand new mixer, which he's very excited about using. So basically what's gonna happen is he's gonna take the sugar, mix it with, how much sugar is this?
That is 2 1/4 cups.
2 1/4 cups of sugar. He's gonna mix it with 6 tablespoons of water. Put it on the stove at medium heat, let it melt together, mix it up a little bit until it gets to a softball stage. Essentially what that means, if you take it and you dip it into water, it forms a ball right away. It's not really entirely hard, but it has a nice sticky texture to it. So while he puts the sugar with the water on the stove, he's gonna start blending the egg whites in the mixer to go ahead and like froth them up a little bit, so that when he adds this to it, it'll start to blend really well.
We're gonna do this till these are frothy and sort of holding their shape on their own.
Okay, so we have the sugar at a hardball stage. Very difficult. You can take it with your fingers, drop in some water. It's very hot. It burns. I don't suggest
Don't do it.
So now we're gonna put the mixer on low and slowly pour this in. Be careful. This is hot. It will splatter. You don't want it to burn you.
Sleeves on.
Sleeves on.
Just don't pour it into the beers. Beautiful, well done. So it's basically meringue.
All right. Next little trick. You see all this sugar? It's a pain in the ass to have to scrub over the sink to get out. So if you want to get this out faster, fill this up with water, bring it to a boil, it dissolves all of it, and you can pour it straight out. All right, so we finally got this to a, I guess what you would call a stiff peak, as you can see.
Yep.
It's hanging in there. So now we're gonna transfer this all into a piping bag, and then put it on top of the pipe.
And attempt to make it look nice.
Yes. Throw those on the green thing,
Yeah.
and then we'll do this.
Here, get a little bit more out of here. This one's like knobby, unless it's just gonna stick
We
up on
have
that
we
one.
have plenty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, if you do have extra leftover meringue, all you have to do, plop it onto a little parchment paper, cook it at 325.
Make cookies.
I don't know how long, maybe like 10 minutes, and it'll make meringue cookies. So this is a two-person job. If you haven't noticed, you can do it with one person, but it's exponentially harder. But also knowing us, who knows?
That holds still, and then that twists like that. Alright. Try and get it as deep down in there as you can.
Get it in there. Yeah, I'm just gonna focus on getting it there. So see how nice this is?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So pretty. We're gonna see how much this wants to cooperate. It's okay. Isn't that perfect? Yoshi, baby, this is not for you.
Yoshi is not my nickname. It is for the dog that is standing
Yeah.
underneath her
The dog
legs.
that you can't see.
Who's very interested in the meringue process.
Of course, he wants it. Just eggs and sugar.
Also, it's gonna get dirty. It's gonna get sticky,
It's gonna
and
be
it's
messy.
fine.
It's baking.
Coming from the man who's never baked a thing in his life
Wow.
until yesterday.
Okay, that's
I'm
not
just
good.
kidding.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
2 dogs now.
Now we have two dogs. We call them the Vixens. The Vixens of Austin, because they're the worst.
Perfect.
Okay.
That should be enough.
I think so as well.
Okay.
Now you want to make sure
Toothpaste it.
you kind of toothpaste it. You always want to toothpaste the bag to get all the meringue from the top down to the bottom. By the way,
It's really
it's
good.
delicious.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay. Clean kitchens, always. So this is where he's going to do a really good job on piping it onto the pie. I am not as artistically inclined all the time. Sometimes, not very often. So he's going to do his best to get it into some concentric circles so he can pipe it evenly. Remember, this is his first time doing this, and everything's fine.
Everything's gonna be fine. It's gonna be beautiful. Fingers crossed. There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright. Piping time.
Now we pipe.
This is the fun part. Let's get like this actually. I'm right-handed, so I do that. And then just do it out like that. Get a little rose. Not as close to the side as I would have liked, but it is what it
You
is.
can always fix that. Don't listen to me. I'm not a baker.
Okay, I see what you mean though. These are gonna get progressively better as we move around the edge.
But as you can see, these nice little points that they have right here, the meringue is perfect in consistency. Or so I think.
I agree. You did a good job. This is a lot harder than it looks.
It's much harder than it looks. So, also since there is so much meringue, if you want to, not for him because he's already started, but next time you can also get a plate and practice a few times first just to get the consistency right and kind of get a feel for how it comes out, how to pipe it.
I would advise that.
He advised that. He also got these piping bags. They're not expensive at all. He got like 100 of them for
like $5.
$5. But if you're in a pinch and you run out and you don't know, solution. Take a Ziploc baggie, fill that up, take your funnel, stick it in, and you have your new piping bag.
Beautiful. I might ask you to scrape off that one little deal that I botched. Oh my gosh, this is so much harder than it looks. It doesn't go where you want it to.
It really doesn't?
It really doesn't. Here, that's fine. I can.
Yep.
I'm gonna go over it. It
good
tastes.
meringue.
Yeah, it tastes really good. Okay, cool. And then you've got a fun little
One
space
more left.
right there
All right, we're gonna put this in the oven
for just
and
like
look at it in a second. All right, I'm gonna do a little quick action shot of what it looks like. I don't think it looks too dark, but using the broiler, we got just enough brownness right on the outside, which is really nice. If any longer, this stuff reacts so fast that it would get almost completely pitch black. So
Don't want that.
So we have very few steps left in Tyler's very first key lime pie.
I know.
Okay, don't break that off.
It looks heavy.
No, it doesn't. Anyway, chocolate.
Yep, chocolate first. Get this out of the way. Honestly, if I had a duster, that would be ideal.
We don't have a duster
have a
though,
duster?
so it's just gonna have to happen.
So we're just gonna do it this way. YOLO.
YOLO. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle.
Yeah.
Some people like to take a spoon and just dash it along the side, but I don't have very good control with my hands. So when I do that, it just flies everywhere. And he wants to concentrate this chocolate dust more so on just the middle of the cake. I keep calling it a cake. Earlier I kept calling the crust a dough. It's a crust. Sorry, it's fine.
It is what it is.
Everything is fine.
Doesn't have to be perfect. I just want that to be covered in the middle.
Yeah.
So that when you cut, you don't see the color until you cut into it. And then it's got that nice kind of soft, creamy, sort of greenish color.
I would have just thrown it on.
You would have.
Yes, and this is the difference between two people. Also why he's baking the pie and I'm not.
So again, that doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna get on the meringue a little bit. That's fine.
So another garnish that I kind of showed him to do. It's very little did I contribute to this cake. But this, when you cut a lime wedge, if you cut it down the center, you can twist it in half and just set it nicely on top. We also have some fresh mint. Mint is gonna go on top. And I guess you're about to see the finished product. The symmetry is there. So here is Tyler's finished product.
That's it.
Look at that. Nice little key lime pie. Like I said, this was filmed on my iPhone, stating on some books. Tyler, what did you think about your first baking experience?
Whew. It was very, it was much of an ordeal than I thought it was.
It was an ordeal. To be honest, we screwed up the first crust, had to go back to the store and remake another crust.
Just edited around it.
And it's okay, it's fine, everything's fine. But the meringue was the first go around, which is really awesome. So is the actual center, flavors, everything. So this is all you're gonna actually see of the final pie. When we cut a piece, when we make it all pretty and put it on a plate, you'll see the rest of it. But until then, thanks for joining.